I like this church. There's no clock. Well, I want to start out just by saying thank you for having me here and for welcoming Carolyn and I so well. Today, it gives me a great pleasure to always talk about the work there at Mount Mission School. So my comments today won't take a long time. I'll borrow this from our preacher, Mike Rice. My comments won't take long. It'll just seem that way. Does anybody know, I did a little research before I came up. Does anybody have any idea the first gift that we have on record from Horse Pasture Church at Mount Mission School? Anybody know what the date of that was? Yeah, you're on it. I looked it up, and what we have on record is January the 9th of 1953 was the first financial contribution that came to the church. So we're looking at almost 68 years. Now, contrary to what Dave says, that is, more years than I am old. But what a testimony. And when I think about that, I thought about Proverbs 13. It says in verse 22, a good person leaves an inheritance to their children's children. What a heritage, or what a legacy that this church has been giving to your children and their children's children for 68 years. Congratulations for that. Now, while we're talking about years, Dave might have been around for this, but we're almost about ready to celebrate our 100th anniversary at Mountain Mission School. In April of 21, we will turn 100 years old. Now, during this time, just like I'm sure here, the way we've done things, the way it looks, the methods that we use have certainly changed. I know with Mr. Hurley, he used a lot of the boys and the children to farm and raise corn. And I know as a kindergartner, we would go to the Mount Mission School farm and milk cows as a little field trip. So I know our methods have changed, but the mission and what we're trying to accomplish hasn't changed one bit. So at this time, I've got a little short video that I'd like to share with you that hopefully will give you a little bit of an introduction, and we'll follow up on some things from there.
It's early spring, 1888. 10-year-old Sam Hurley has recently become an orphan, and he now wanders the mountains of Kentucky in search of work or food. But tonight would not be like the other nights he's had to bed down in the wild. A nearby mountain lion is also searching for food.
That eyes can be fixed, and things, the conveniences that we have are with us. Well, let's go over a little bit about what we do. The first thing I'd like to point out to you that Mountain Mission School does is rescue children. We break that poverty cycle. We try to pull children from situations of neglect. In today's world, it seems like the drug epidemic is rampant. I don't know if it's true here like it is in other places, but many times we see grandparents trying to raise toddlers. I was telling them last night, it was just last month, we accepted a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old from a 73-year-old parent, not grandparent, parent, that just could not raise these children. So good situation. I think it's all going to work out well. But James 1:27 tells us this: pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this, to visit the orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Now, James describes this true religion a little differently than maybe we would today in our culture. He says it's the act of looking after orphans and widows. You know, I think God has a special place for those that are in our society that are a little bit more vulnerable and downtrodden, parts that we might consider the margins of our society. God is their protector, and James is reminding us that we are God's ambassadors. The other thing that we do is we try to restore the child. Allowing a child to be a child, I think, is a proper thing for a period. And so many of our children that we serve have been forced into situations that are just way beyond their years. So we try to restore them physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Every child that may apply to come to Mount Mission School is not really a fit, and that's a real art for us to try to determine, who comes and who doesn't, because we are limited. We don't have, any sort of a clinician or health professional there. My wife is a special education teacher. We don't offer those type services and just can't afford to at this point in time anyway. So we don't want to do a child a disservice by accepting them and not providing fully for the needs that they need. So we try to find other placement for them. But I think when we think of restoring a child, there's one little girl that's near and dear to my heart. Carolyn hears me talk about her all the time. Her name is Jocelyn, and she sat at my table last year. Jocelyn came to us by way of a missionary that was active in El Salvador, and found Jocelyn's mother feeding her child out of other people's garbage. The children were, of course, sick. The father had been killed by the drug cartel. So I just think of that. What would Jocelyn's life have been like had that missionary not found a way to get her to a little town in Southwest Virginia, to Mount Mission School? Psalms 127, starting in verse 3, tells us, "Behold, children are a gift of the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth." Another aspect that we do is we reach out to the world, not just Appalachia, not just Virginia, Tennessee, West Virginia, but reach out to the world. We currently have 10 nationalities. Now, when I say 10 nationalities, it's just been, I guess, 8 years ago that we actually became certified to accept children directly from other countries. Prior to that, we had children that were other nationalities, but it was because their parents came here. They were first-generation Americans, if that makes sense. Right now, we have 10 different nationalities on our campus that came to us directly from other countries, such as Tanzania. I mentioned Jocelyn from El Salvador. I think we have Rwanda. We actually have a staff member that's native of Rwanda. So, Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I have learned is different, and you don't want to get them mixed up. So it's almost like saying West Virginia and Virginia's to us. So in essence, it's kind of that Great Commission turned backwards. Instead of going to the world is actually coming to Mountain Mission School. And hopefully, over the years, what will happen is some of those children will make their way back to their home countries and be good ambassadors for Christ there. Matthew 28 tells us, says, "Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit." So we do all of this for one purpose, and that is to glorify our God. So let's talk a little bit about some of our current programs. Talked in the video a little bit about our education system. I think we have we could always be better, but I think we have pretty much a premier education system there at the school. We recently, I think it's been 4 years ago, received accreditation through the Association of Christian Schools International, and we were due to have a visit from them this year, and of course, like most everything else, that's kind of been put on hold. Sports programs, and again, I'll say this was pre-COVID, but it will also be post-COVID. We offer basketball, soccer, volleyball, golf, and this year, if all goes well, we hope to offer baseball once again. We haven't had baseball in several years. I'm an advocate of athletics, so I think, our children are on a quite small campus, so I think anything we can do to get them out into the public, exercise, and I just think athletics is a good thing for them. So hopefully we'll add other programs if the Lord blesses that. We've also recently reintroduced vocational education. We have a pretty talented director for that. If we can just keep him on course, he wants to fix everything, Dave. If you ever have anybody that just, of course, most of the time with those folks, they get this job half done and they move on to the next job. But we have wood shop, we have auto mechanics, and then we have, through the blessing of one of our folks there in town, they donated us a fairly large greenhouse. So that's been interesting. The local community has been bringing us their ferns. So hopefully over the winter, what we intend to do is reproduce those ferns by dividing them, and hopefully that's going to add some funds to the senior class to hopefully have a small senior trip at the end of the year. They haven't really been able to raise any money due to COVID. Home life. Our children, if you look on our table outside, I've put a map of our campus. If you haven't been to Mount Mission School, that'll give you a little bit of an idea of what our campus looks like. We live on 8 residence halls. Now, we are bad to use this terminology. And when I say 8 residence halls, that's really 3 buildings with multiple floors. So in each of our halls that have multiple floors, the younger children are on the bottom, the older ones go up a floor, and then the oldest are on the top, however how many floors that ends up being. Our boys' side is 4 floors tall, and our girls' side is currently 3 floors tall. What was it, 2 years ago, 2018, I think, we suffered a fire. I think if those of you that get our newsletter probably saw about our fire. We had a 60,000 volt power line that fell on the top of our boys' dormitory, and for lack of a better term, it just lit it up. Made small holes in our flat roof, burned, melted. It had a boiler system at that time that heated the building. Melted those pipes, and most of the damage that occurred from the fire was actually through water damage, because the fire department couldn't go in to put the fire out until they knew the electricity was turned off, and so that water just ran and ran for hours and soaked all 4 floors. After a $3 million renovation, the boys' floors, the boys are living pretty good. And it's very rare for the girls to be able to go actually inside the boys' dormitory, but we had an open house and the girls all got to go in. And, for decades, the girls had, the dormitory, because they had carpet and, a little nicer. They got the last renovation. But now all the girls are jealous. So the board decided that it was time to renovate the girls' side, and we're doing more than renovating. We're actually trading some halls. For those of you that have been there, what traditionally was the toddler hall, which was our co-ed dorm, we call it, with all of our babies and toddlers, is going to become a multi-level building for our older girls. So we're moving from toddlers, I think, to Delta House is what we're probably going to, no. But we look forward to that, but that also got interrupted with COVID. So that's been put on hold. We have done outside work since COVID to replace some really old water lines and sewer lines that have been there for quite a while, I can assure you. Some of the materials, I'm not sure I'd ever seen what they were made out of before, but that got interrupted by COVID. So let's talk just a little bit about COVID, everybody's favorite topic besides politics this year, right? COVID-19 did come to our campus. I received that first phone call on April the 1st, which unfortunately it wasn't a joke, that our first member of our staff had tested positive for COVID-19. Now, that was, for us, that was the first case in the entire county, and I have been told it was the first active school case, I think, in the state, at least for a boarding school. So this really put Mount Mission School in a spotlight. We had, you know, everybody wanting to either help us or, unfortunately, hurt us. But however, with the assistance of the Virginia Department of Health, they really, I can't brag on them enough, they really came alongside of us, and we charted a course and proceeded to learn the difference between what is quarantine, what is isolation, and boy, is there a difference. I don't know if you guys know the technical difference, but you don't want to be in isolation. There's a reason that there is solitary confinement is in prisons, not in children's homes. So we learned different things, what constitutes a close contact, and we also learned that the rules and recommendations change every day. So you kind of have to, you know, be willing to be flexible, and that 14-day quarantine can easily turn into 21 days in a moment's notice. But anyway, we worked our way, you know, through several rounds of testing. Unfortunately, it resulted in us discovering another 16 cases through that process. But we worked our way through round one. And when I say round one, that would indicate there was a round two, and there was. On October the 5th, I again received that phone call that we had a case on our campus. And actually, by the end of that day, we had, you know, testing had become a little more prevalent quick. We ended up identifying 6 different cases. So this time we were a little more familiar with the protocol. Health department officials have my number, I have their number on speed dial. And we worked our way through that whole process to clear our campus off in a total of 16 days. So that was very fortunate. School for us this year, school looks just a little bit different than, and I'm sure you guys that have children know about that. We're going to school half days. We go to school in the morning, and then we disperse by lunchtime. Some of the reasons that we're doing that is to limit the amount of time they have direct contact with each other, because part of our protocol now is that each hall, which I said before is a floor or a certain age group of boys or girls, they stay together in cohorts. So we don't allow the 3rd floor boys to have playtime with the 4th floor boys, and they're not out at the same time the 1st floor boys are. Same thing on the girls' side. So they eat together, they live together, but they mix in the school building for that half day. But when they come to school, they have a seat. They stay in that seat all day, you know, the 4 hours that they're there, and our teachers rotate. So that, again, keeps them from sitting in 3 different seats or mixing in the halls. So just trying to do everything that we can do to combat this. Visitors to campus have been limited, and boy, do we really miss that. That was a real vital part of who we are, was sharing it. And there's no better way to understand Mount Mission School than to come see it, touch it, smell it, you know, just experience that. But we're going to get through it. You know, I call it kind of a war on COVID, and we will prevail. But with any war, I don't care what type, there's casualties. And if I had to say what has really hurt us most in the war on COVID has been our staff. It's been tough. I don't know how many of you would like to be almost locked up on a floor with 25 children. It's been a real trying time on our staff. Not only the ones that are living with the children, but I know during round one, I suddenly became the mailman. I became the guy that delivered the food. I became the guy that went to the pharmacy for you. I didn't sign up for that when I agreed to be president, I'm just going to tell you. But it's what we needed to do to get through it. So our staff has really struggled through this. So I ask you to continue to pray for our staff and our children, that once we come out of this battle that we have with COVID, I really think we'll come out stronger and better for it. But thank you for supporting our staff and lifting their spirits, because you don't know how much that means. That means a whole lot. Now, Mount Mission School, we always say, serves as home, church, and school for children in need from throughout the world. We currently have 172 students on campus, which is a little lower than normal, but that's due to the renovation project and trying to move all the girls on the girls' side into one building to enable the construction to take place on the vacant building. We have 54 staff members, but we also have 6 that are teachers or staff in some other way that are there totally voluntary, no pay. They're retirees. We have one that's a college professor from Arizona that was on a sabbatical and intended to go overseas to do some missionary work, and with COVID just couldn't go, and he found his way to us. So he filled a real hole that we needed, so we were very blessed with that. Roughly half of these staff live on halls with children, and the other half have other jobs or live in the community. Again, I said we have 10 countries represented. We currently have 46 of our graduates that are attending college. We had 10 graduates last year. It was a small class. 9 of those students are attending the 4-year universities, and 1 is attending community college. Talked a little bit about our education system, and I think this speaks volumes. Here are some of the colleges that our students are attending. I don't know why we put this on top, but we've got a child that received a full scholarship to Dartmouth, Ivy League school, and he's exceptional. He's really pulled himself up and done well. We have children at Davison College, East Tennessee State University, Milligan University, the University of South Carolina, UNC Charlotte. We have 3 with full scholarships to Wake Forest. Syracuse. All right, here we go. Quinnipiac. As my wife says, it sounded better in my head. Quinnipiac University. Virginia Commonwealth University, George Mason, Virginia Tech. And then there's this, I think, a junior college up in Charlottesville called the University of Virginia. University of San Francisco, Regent University, Jacksonville University, Emory and Henry College, another great school, Kent State, and the University of Northwestern Ohio. So I hope that hearing that list reinforces that our education program does produce children with the potential to succeed, and in fact they are using that potential. Again, hopefully breaking that poverty mentality and entitlement programs that they were pulling them out of. Now, real quickly, of course, my background is in the financial world, and that's how I came to Mount Mission School. I was originally hired to be their chief financial officer and was named their 7th president in September of 19. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about money and numbers. That's my jam. This year's budget that we just approved, our budget rolls from August 1st to July 31st is our fiscal year, is a little over $4.1 million to make the school operate for a year. So it takes quite a bit of funds to make things roll. We say or advertise that it costs for sponsorship purposes, that it costs $15,000 to feed and educate and keep a child for a year. And reality is it's just a little bit more than that. But I pulled up our numbers before I left and wrote down a few food expenses. So this would be for the actual food, or cook's salaries, and so on and so forth. We spend $460,000 roughly a year. So that sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it? And it is. But when you extrapolate that out, and we could debate, you skipped a meal here, skipped a meal there, but that's roughly about $1.86 a meal. So I'm pretty proud that we are efficient, at least in our funds. Electricity, and I'm the guy that walks around, I'm dad on campus, so if even a staff member leaves the lights on, they get an email from me or a text message, hey, you left the lights on in your classroom. Electricity is $166,000 a year. The water bill for campus is $82,500 last year. Salaries for those 60 or so folks, $1.4 million just for their salaries. Health benefits for our staff, just to keep health insurance for them, we spent last year $506,000. So as you can see, it takes quite a bit of money to just keep the essentials going, and that hasn't even gotten into doctor's bills for kids or other things, clothing. Of this, let's talk a little bit about where it comes from. Last year we took in from churches about $807,000. And from individuals, so I kind of put the two together because most of our individuals that support us would go to a church, about $900,000. So I thank you for being a part of that number for 68 years. So the thing that makes that so important to us is we don't have a government check that comes to us every day or every month. We don't accept any government funds and don't intend to because of another topic I'm going to talk about here. Let's look at 2 Timothy and 3:16 says, all scripture is inspired by God and is useful to teach us what is true and to make us realize what is wrong in our lives. It corrects us when we are wrong and teaches us to do what is right. Teaching scripture is at the core of what we do at the school. Each school grade and each school day, the children are taught from the Bible. Bible is a required class for every grade that we offer. Additionally, they are taught on their respective halls. So when they're taught, when they have devotions or something on their residence halls, that gives an opportunity for some age-appropriate discussions. I can tell you with the older halls, I think you met Tammy Carter last year. Did she come up? She had lived with the older boys, so Tammy is a pretty good mom. She'll sit those boys down and tell them how to treat a lady and how to date, what's proper to say and what's proper not to say. So that type of training can occur on the halls. We want to raise well-balanced young ladies and gentlemen, and knowledge of Jesus is essential for that, in my opinion. I can honestly say this, if a child comes to Mount Mission School and leaves us not knowing who Jesus is and what Jesus did, they were asleep for the entire time that they were there. So they are taught the Word, and we won't take government money because we know as soon as we take that money, that part of our mission is gone. So as I open my comments, you've been supporting us for 68 years. So think about that. Think of the lives that you have been a part of impacting. And I'll leave you with this challenge. continue changing lives. I invite you, of course, post-COVID, to come visit our campus, consider supporting us financially, and please, I want to really emphasize this. I want you to think we need your money every month, no doubt. That's at the utmost of our needs. But we want you to think of us as a resource for you to serve this community. I'm confident that there are children within just a few miles of this congregation that would benefit from being at Mount Mission School. Remember us as a resource, as a tool in your tool belt as you go out into your community to serve and to better it. So refer children to us. I noticed in the opening here you have the Crisis Pregnancy Center, something like that. Make those folks aware of us. Make teachers aware of us, guidance counselors, police officers. If there's a family out there that is struggling to raise a child or provide adequately for them, remember we're here and we can help rescue them. We just want to help you be that light of the world to your community.